What's up, everybody? Thank you for listening to the Whatcast. We're going to do a little something different this time.
Yeah, we are. So, I've shamelessly plugged our Patreon account many times on here, and I'm going to do it right now. We've got a Patreon account. You can join it. We put out exclusive episodes called Quick and the Weird, and we also put out some music episodes, and I think maybe we did a Nerd Alert episode on there at some point, and we also review documentaries and things of that nature, do commentary tracks, all sorts of things. But if you join, you get access to that as well as our Discord. Then we have higher levels if you want to join our sticker club or the very exclusive, very fancy, very cool monthly print club, where you get a limited edition print that is original, done by our very own Mateo. Although sometimes he lets his beard do some of the artwork, but he grew the beard, so we can still give credit to Mateo for that. But anyway, we know we've been very bad boys with our releasing schedule lately, and we can blame that all on Aldo Poe. He's a fucking asshole, and it's his fault.
Yeah, we can't catch a break, dude.
I know. Fucking Aldo strikes again. Sent Mateo to the hospital. It's ridiculous. Why, Aldo? Why? We loved you, Aldo. We loved you. But I don't know if you guys are aware how much work goes into those stupid 100 episodes we do, but Mateo fucking busts his ass doing that shit. All sorts of editing goes in. Like, we had, I don't even know how many separate recordings we did for that show. It was under an hour, but I think we ended up doing like 5 or 6 different recordings that Mateo then had to edit together with sound effects and then overdubbing and all manner of things. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is a lot of work went into it, and as a result, we haven't had a whole lot of time to do a lot of research to bring some new episodes to you. So I know the past, I guess month or so has been really spotty with our releases, and we apologize for that. And because we don't want to take a week off after just releasing our 400th episode, what we're going to do is give all of our non-patrons a little taste of what we do over on the Patreon side of things. And if you like that and you want to hear more of that exclusive content, definitely head over there and check it out. I think what we're going to do here is just attach a couple of our Quick and the Weird episodes. So I apologize to our patrons, but we literally just before we're recording this intro, we recorded 2 new Quick and the Weird episodes. So you got some new shit coming for you. But I apologize that you got to take a week off. But hey, maybe it's been a while since you listened to those episodes and you just want to listen to a couple back to back, and now you can, I guess, maybe. But we think you guys are fancy, and we love the shit out of you. So we're just trying to share our lovely patron community with our non-patrons. So again, if you guys like this stuff, go check out our Patreon. I believe it's patreon.com/thewhatcast. And
we're shadow banned like everywhere at the moment.
Yeah,
don't
you literally have to type it in. You'll have to type it in, but it's The Whatcast. Patreon.com/thewhatcast. No hyphens, no underscores, just all one word. Put it in and give us your dollars, and we'll give you some decent show content, maybe, if you like this sort of thing. And we've got a lot of ideas for future stuff there too, but and we're always open to suggestions too. If you are one of our patrons and there's something you want us to do, or that you want to hear more of, let us know, and we will gladly consider it. Not gonna say we'll do it, but we'll consider it.
We've been kicking around the idea of having listener stories. You guys come on and tell us about weird stuff.
Yeah, and I think that'd be good for that sort of thing if you guys are into it. Also, I forgot to mention, we also do monthly meetups and hang out for like an hour or so on a Friday night and shoot the poop, watch some creepy videos, and practice voodoo rituals. So it'd be cool to have more people join, and if you know anybody who doesn't mind being sacrificed, and tell them to join as well. You can always use a sacrificial lamb at the evil voodoo ritual ceremonies. So without any further rambling, here is some stuff from Patreon. I hope you enjoy, and be cool.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Quick and the Weird. Mike, what's up, dude?
I'm ready to get quick with the weirdness. Or maybe long-winded with the weirdness. I don't know.
Let's see how this goes.
Yeah.
All right, so I have no idea what you brought for us tonight, so...
I kind of kept you in the dark on this one. This one, I kind of debated on whether or not this was going to be a regular show or a patron show. Depending on where you're listening to this, you'll know where it ended up. But this was a weird case. We've got a weird murder and an unlikely guardian angel, I guess we'll say. So I don't know if in the show we've ever talked about an investigator named Elliot O'Donnell. Does that name sound familiar to you? Have we talked about him?
It sounds familiar. We may have not talked about the dude, but I may have read it somewhere.
Okay. So I think at some point in the future, we're going to have to do an episode just based around this dude. But this case comes from one of his investigations, but Elliot O'Donnell himself was a former police officer, and he was a well-known ghost hunter in the early 1900s, and I believe late 1800s as well. But this particular case, there was in the information available that's come from his research, there wasn't an exact date. But due to the time that he had been investigating, it's assumed that it was likely at the turn of the century. So either late 1800s, early 1900s. But the events surrounding this case happened in a place called Hoddesdon in England. And the case itself centers around the Borman family, who were a Quaker family that was living in Hoddesdon. At their home, Mr. and Mrs. Borman lived there with their three daughters, but they also had a servant girl named Elizabeth Harris who worked with them. And at the time of these events, there was a family friend named Mrs. Hammerstone who was staying with them. After a night of revelry at the house, the daughters had gone to bed. Mr. Borman had gone to bed. And Mrs. Hammerstone and Mrs. Borman were left alone, sitting by the fire, having a nice ladylike chat. And in the midst of this, they begin to hear these loud noises coming from the kitchen. And it just sounds like, banging, and they hear, just a general commotion. So they get up to investigate, and they see Elizabeth Harris trying to prevent something from getting in the back door in the kitchen. And she's got all her weight against the door, and she's doing everything she can to make sure that whatever's on the other side won't come in.
Whoa.
So the women go and try to help her and figure out what's going on. And between the three of them, they're able to stop the door from opening. And it's then that Elizabeth explains what's going on. There was a man, well, he was an 18-year-old, but at that point in time, that was a man. You were not a child anymore. But his name was Thomas Simmons, and she claimed that he was trying to get in and he had a knife. And this Tom Simmons guy was, they all knew him. He actually used to work for Mr. Borman, but Mr. Borman ended up letting him go because he had a poor work ethic. And, Mr. Borman was a Quaker, so he didn't buy into that bullshit. But in Tom's time working with the Bormans, he had attempted to develop a romantic relationship with Elizabeth. And at first, Elizabeth seemed like she might be receptive to that sort of thing. But after discussing it with Mrs. Borman, Mrs. Borman noticed something in Tom that just seemed off. And she relayed this hunch to Elizabeth, who then thought about it and realized, she's probably right. He is kind of a weirdo. So she basically turned Tom down, and then he was fired by Mr. Borman. So he was really upset by it, and he had been telling people around town that he was going to get revenge in some way on the Bormans and Elizabeth. So knowing all this information, knowing the events that were there and hearing the talk around town, and now seeing him outside their home with a knife, they realized that he had, he wasn't just talking shit. Like, he fully intended to have something happen. It was then that they heard the sound of glass breaking, and they run into the next room just in time to see Tom coming through the side window with the knife in his hand. Mrs. Hammerstone kind of prevents him from getting to Elizabeth and Mrs. Borman, and she's just begging him to leave. And he walked up to her, stabs her in the throat, and that ultimately resulted in her bleeding to death. And she was the first victim of Tom Simmons. But after, obviously Mrs. Borman and Elizabeth see someone get stabbed, and they start screaming, which alerted the three daughters, who came running down, seeing Mrs. Hammerstone laying on the floor bleeding to death. They attempted to flee the house, but Tom grabbed one of them and then proceeded to stab her to death, while the other two were able to escape and ran out screaming from the house.
Jeez.
Yeah. Then he turned his attention to Elizabeth and Mrs. Borman, and he began to stab them. Fortunately, they both survived, but as he was about to deal the killing blow to Elizabeth, he was standing over her with the knife. He all of a sudden stopped and looked over his shoulder and began screaming in terror, and just ran out of the home. And Elizabeth said in her report to the police that they were able to hear his footsteps echoing across the cobblestones as he was running away. And they were able to, he was legitimately running away. But they didn't see what had terrified him. So the police were out looking for him, and eventually Tom was found by the police in a barn. When they found him, he was in a state of shock and was still very clearly terrified. He was tried and was sentenced to death for the murders. Just before his death, in speaking with the chaplain, he was telling him what had occurred that night. And he said, as he was about to kill Elizabeth, he felt an icy touch on his shoulder. And when he turned to see what was causing this feeling on his shoulder, he saw a black humanoid figure with black wings and a human-like face that was frowning at him like it was disapproving what he was doing. So upon seeing this thing, he took off running and just kept running, but this thing followed him. It followed him all the way to this barn where he was found, and as soon as he entered the barn, he completely lost consciousness, and he only woke up when the police found him. Now, hearing about all this, and again, the investigator, Elliot O'Donnell, was a former police officer, so this kind of fits in both of his areas where, on one hand, there is a murder or a crime committed, so that's going to kind of click with his former police life. But he was also a ghost hunter, so you've got this mysterious entity that just shows up, and only the killer saw it. None of the victims that were present saw this thing. So he starts looking into it, and he wanted to see if anyone else had seen this thing. And there were a few people that came forward to say that they had witnessed a similar being, a dark figure with dark wings was basically the description. But there was one witness that relayed his story, and it goes beyond just seeing a entity. It almost seems like this is some sort of like protector or something, even though it's seemingly a terrifying hell beast. It basically it's the picture of a demon or something along those lines. Like you see a dark figure with dark black wings, and what else do you call it? But this witness, the witness that came forward during the investigation, said that he was preparing to kill himself. He was ready to commit suicide, and just before he did it, this thing appeared to him. Black figure, black wings. And he said upon seeing it, he felt compelled to not only continue living, but turn his life around and make things better for himself, which he actually ended up doing at that point. The point he was interviewed by Elliot, he was in the process of turning things around and getting his life back on track, and he no longer had any suicidal thoughts. And he said it was this being, without even speaking to him, just by appearing to him, gave him this compulsion to lead a better life and to not kill himself. So we see here twice now this thing appeared and acted as a protector. Isn't it interesting? Because we've talked a million times about the fear on the show. And isn't it interesting that one witness, upon seeing this thing, ran and fled in terror, and he was doing an evil deed. The other one was sad and down on his luck and was ready to end it all, but felt redeemed by seeing this thing.
That is very strange. But he still described it as an all-black being with black wings?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, almost the exact same description. Except in his, it wasn't frowning, it was just looking at him.
That's bizarre. You'd think it would it appear to him as an angel or something that would cause those feelings to emerge.
Yeah, like typically protector beings are seen as, beings of light or wearing flowing white clothing or, looking beautiful. But this thing appeared like a demon. Common conception of a demon. But it seemed to, be one of the good guys. He prevented, he didn't prevent the death of 2 people, but he definitely prevented the death of 2 more people, because Thomas admitted to the police that he was there. His whole purpose for being there was to kill Elizabeth and Mrs. Borman. That was his sole purpose for being there. The 2 people he killed were just incidental murders. Like they weren't his reason for being there. He wasn't going to kill everybody. He wanted to kill those 2 specifically. And the being prevented him from doing that. And then prevented a guy from killing himself. I wish that there was more details on the other witnesses that came forward, and whether or not they were saved or judged in some way by this thing.
And these people are pretty goddamn close to this thing when they're seeing it, right?
The one dude, it actually, touched him. That's how he knew it was, that's how it announced its presence. Basically, it touched him on the shoulder, and he felt an icy touch, which again is something that's usually associated with some sort of malevolent entity. Like in hauntings, the temperatures tend to drop whenever demons, quote unquote demons, appear. There's always coldness that comes with them. Like they suck all the heat out of the area by making their presence felt. So maybe it's not an evil thing. Maybe it's like like just part of what happens when these things present themselves or come in from another place. But I'm like, this case is just so weird, because the only 2 events or where this thing was witnessed were the murder and then the guy who was going to kill himself. Why don't we hear anything else? Like, was it just there to do it twice? Did it have a quota it needed to meet? And then after meeting the quota, it's like, all right, you can move on now and go do whatever you got to do. And he's like, oh, sweet. No more dealing with those assholes. I'm out.
Right. That's weird. Like a do-gooder demon or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I wonder if in the demon world, like, you do something wrong and they're like, you know what? You got to help people now. And he's like, fuck. How many people? You need to help 3 people. He's, God damn it. Fine. Fuck. And that's why he didn't save the other 2, because he only had to save 3 people. And he's like, I already saved that poor bastard who was going to kill himself. I'll let these guys die, and then I can save 2 and call it a day.
See, he has some demon fun. Just let 3 others die. He's like, yeah. All right, I'll get back to it.
Womp, womp. Yeah. But I do think it's interesting that when Tom was running from the thing and he found shelter, immediately he went unconscious, and he suffered no wounds. He just entered the place and passed out until the cops found him.
Do you think that could have been him going into shock?
Could have been shock, or maybe this thing induced the sleepiness.
Yeah. That's very weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird case. And I really wish there was more information out there, or even like similar cases. Because, I mean, really, the only thing that I can tie this to is like the weird forms that we talked about with the Lake Michigan Mothman.
Right. I wonder.
Remember, she listed all the different forms that it takes.
Yeah. And this is very Mothman-like. Maybe this is just like a very up close and personal Mothman encounter. But why?
There was no mention of the glowing eyes, though, and that's usually like the biggest feature, other than it being black or dark gray, is that it has the huge glowing red eyes.
Yeah, and why would it appear in their house behind this kid?
Right. And why didn't any of the people there? I mean, you could say they were too busy bleeding on the floor to notice an entity, but it's weird to me that it would be right behind the guy who is stabbing them and, close enough to touch, and nobody else saw it.
Right. Well, I mean, they said they saw him look over his shoulder and scream in terror, so
right.
Clearly it wasn't visible to them.
Yeah, it's so weird. So weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the bulk of it. It's just one of those weird cases where this thing, and we always talk about how we love these one-off cases, and while not exactly a one-off, I wouldn't say that it's a reoccurring thing. It seems like it just appeared to a few people and then was gone. And no one saw it. Like, there's no reports of it flying around or anything. No one had reported seeing weird flying entities around that time. It was just these isolated incidents where it seemed to save people.
And they said it had a human face?
Yeah, human-like face. So they didn't exactly describe why it wasn't exactly a human face, but they said it was a human-like face and a human-like body, but with black wings.
Of a bird.
Didn't say whether it's bird or bat or what, just black wings extending from its back.
Right, okay.
So it had arms. It did have arms. So it wasn't, like the Mothman where it had no head or arms, just wings and legs.
That's so weird.
Yeah. So I'm glad that it's weird because it fits in with, the whole theme of this show.
Well, thank you everybody for supporting us here on Patreon. We hope you like that story of this weird ass. That one's going to trip me out. Dudley the Do-Gooder Demon, man. I got to make a sticker.
Yeah. So you guys will all get a Do-Gooder Demon sticker. Remember, kids, Dudley loves you.
What's up, patron homies? Thank you for supporting us here on Patreon, and welcome to The Quick and the Weird. Did my computer make that noise?
Yeah, it did.
That was your file hitting Dropbox.
There you go, guys. That's what you get on Patreon, behind the scenes. I just sent a file to Mateo that will be used in the ad that you guys don't have to hear because you're on Patreon.
So you'll never hear it.
No, but if you're curious, go check the main feed. But yeah, so a little behind the scenes stuff for you.
Anyway, we're gonna talk about something I've wanted to talk about since I heard about it, and I heard about it from you, Mike. Why don't you tell me what's going on in the world of premonitions and...
Well, here's the thing, Mateo. The past 2 years have been complete and utter garbage, so we would expect, this year we'll have some good stuff happening. But we apparently have a nine-tailed fox demon on the loose now. She's out, and she's fucking pissed.
That doesn't sound good.
No. So this demon took the form of a beautiful woman and was part of a plot to kill Emperor Toba, who was the ruler of Japan from 1107 to 1123. Now, this demon was captured and trapped in this stone called the Killing Stone. And this stone was this demon's prison since the early 1100s. And now, as of March 7th, this stone is broken and the demon is back, baby. She's pissed and she's looking for an emperor to kill. So if you're an emperor, hold on to your booties because she's coming.
So where was this stone?
The stone is in Japan. It's located in the northern region of Tochigi, I think it's pronounced, which is near Tokyo. And the rock itself, it's been a kind of a tourist destination, like for people that like to go see weird shit. But it was this big rock that had a rope tied around it, and there's like a wooden sign that sits in front of the stone. But now the stone has broken, split right in half. And like I said, the demon is free!
Do they know how it was broken? They just found it that way?
Well, I mean, the overwhelming power of the demon clearly finally was able to break free of the magic that bound it to the rock, and it
Oh my God.
karate chopped its way out, or roundhouse kicked its way out, or headbutted its way out. Somehow it broke that fucker.
It's fucking perfect. I mean, with the way the world is going now and has been for the past 2-3 years, I mean, when you told me the story, I mean, like, I'm a true believer. I'm not as skeptic as maybe Mike is, but when you told me that, I said, fucking demon released from a fucking ancient stone. Fucking, why not? Why not?
Yeah. So here's the other weird thing. The past 2 years, like I was saying, and we all know, have been utter shit. Now, a couple of years ago is when cracks started to form in this rock.
Ooh.
So maybe the evil essence was starting to pour out, and it was tainting the world in anticipation of the full wrath that will be unleashed when she finally walks again. But Stick in the Muds, who like to have no fun, are claiming that the reason that the rock broke was because rainwater got inside one of the cracks and froze and expanded, and the expansion caused the cracks in the rock to grow and eventually break the rock in half. So
holy shit, they must have exploding rocks all over Japan then, right?
Listen, don't you dare mock these stick in the mud scientists. They like to have just as much fun as the next guy. Okay? They're not here to shit in your cereal, Mateo. They're here to explain why demon rocks would break. And frankly, I stand with them. I support you, science, and your rainwater demon rock breaking ways.
Science.
Yeah. So, there was never a demon to begin with, and there's certainly not a demon roaming the earth now. I don't buy it.
Well, when you told me about this, I didn't know shit about the fox spirit or anything like that. So I did a little bit of research, and maybe dealing with a fox spirit wouldn't be so bad, but a nine-tailed fox, you're in trouble. The fox spirit is known as a mischievous shapeshifter with magical powers. And for every level of knowledge they gain, for every level of enlightenment they achieve, it grows another tail. So if you happen across a nine-tailed fox, you're dealing with the fucking Thanos of fox spirits.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
That's bad news.
Yeah, they like to fuck around. Legend of the nine-tailed fox can be found in Japan, Korea, but is believed to have originated in China, where it was known as, forgive me if I get this wrong, a Hu Li Jing. It is said to be so mischievous that they will trick people even into losing their lives solely for its amusement. But if you stumble across one and you happen to encounter this creature, and your treatment of it will dictate its treatment of you to the extreme. If you were a jerk to it, it may transform into a beautiful, beautiful woman to get you to fall in love with it. It will marry you and literally spend your entire life making your existence miserable, even causing you to kill yourself. And this happened in the case of King Su. He was ruler of China from 1075 to 1046 BC. He took a wife named Doozy, who he loved very, very much. And it was said that at some point, Doozy was killed and replaced by a nine-tailed fox, who, for whatever reason, decided to destroy this king. She corrupted the king in every way. So evil was she that it is said that she had invented ways to torture people. The people took notice of this, and after years of neglect and abuse, they grew very, very angry. And one day, after losing a battle that she suggested he go fight, defeated. He gathered all his treasures and sat it next to his throne, sat in the throne, setting it on fire, killing himself, and destroying everything he had fucked his people over to get. And that is how much devastation one nine-tailed fox can cause. A crumbling of an entire empire.
That's some serious fuck you power right there.
Right. You said that it's going to look for a new emperor to fuck around with. And apparently in all three of these countries, that's kind of their thing. They'll fuck with anybody, but they love to fuck with rulers and destroy dynasties and stuff like that.
Maybe he's going after Putin.
Who knows? Maybe he influenced Putin, but whatever. But if you treat one with respect, maybe even help it, it could turn, again, into a beautiful woman, get you to fall in love with it. It will marry you, and it will spend as much time and trickery and magic on giving you the best life you can possibly have until you die.
Well, that sounds like a no-brainer then.
Right.
Treat all nine-tailed foxes you see with the utmost respect. But then what happens if you're already like in a relationship? It'll probably fucking kill your current person.
No way. It's 2022, bro. You just got to work out with your chick that you have to, in this case, you get a supernatural partner.
We are now a throuple with this nine-tailed fox demon. I'm sorry. It's either that or you're dead.
Yeah.
Those are our choices. Thruple it is. All right.
I'm not going to argue with the ancient nine-tailed demon. Are you? You want to? Go ahead. She's right there.
So this is just an excuse to have a threesome. No, I swear to you. No, it's not. Like, she will literally kill us all.
The whole world could be at stake. Just open your horizons a little. If not for me, for mankind. But in Korea, they are known as kumiho. And there, they are considered pure fucking evil from my research. There, it is said that they eat human flesh, especially livers and hearts. It shares the shape-shifting ability, but it's altered a little bit. After it eats a woman, it can transform into this woman so that it may go home and eat her family. It could become human permanently by ridding evil from its heart, by not eating humans for 1,000 days, or just eating male livers for 1,000 days. In Japan, it's called a kitsune, and it can be good or evil. It is said that you can spot a kitsune that's trying to pass for a human because some of its canine traits will remain. It could have, furry on its ears or something like that. Maybe a whole tail, like some fetish stuff, right? That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Woman with a tail. You can pull on it, slap you in the face with it.
But it is said that it can hear and see anything. It carries with it a white orb. I'm going to mess this up. Called a Yoshinotama. And it's supposed to be like the source of its power. And it's supposed to be the trickiest out of the three from China, Korea, and Japan. And again, this one in specific loves to fuck with monarchy. And that's what brings us to the Death Stone. It was said to be a nine-tailed fox the story that you had mentioned, that this nine-tailed fox had infiltrated the monarchy and was going to kill the ruler, and the people caught wind of it. They were able to recognize its canine-like features and tried to kill it. And they chased it. And they said that they shot it with an arrow. And as they shot it with an arrow, it returned to its fox form. And as the arrow hit it, it kind of disappeared into the stone. And they said that the stone would kill anybody who touched it until proper spiritual cleansing was done on the stone. So it seems the killer of emperors has been released onto the world. You mentioned maybe it's going for Putin. Maybe it's maybe that stone was broken on purpose.
Maybe it'll take down Joe Biden. Maybe it'll just make its rounds and take out all the leaders of the world.
Right.
Free us all. It's
free us
in a plot twist. It's actually the hero of mankind here to free us from our fucking bonds under government. Just gonna go and murder the governments everywhere.
Fox demon for president.
Yeah, Fox Demon for president. I know she's not American, but she's got my vote, damn it.
What's up, everyone? Thanks for joining us on the quick. Dude, you know what I've been thinking about is putting like a constant like campfire sound behind these episodes. What do you think?
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea.
What do you guys think? Let us know. But anyway, welcome to the Quick and the Weird. Sorry, I've been thinking about that and forgotten to say that to Mike for the better part of a year.
Yeah, we could definitely do that. Make this more like a campfire gathering. If you guys want to, maybe make some s'mores and settle in under a buffalo plaid blanket, and I can relate the stories. What do you think?
Yeah, let us know. I'll take
maybe
this.
We could have some tacos.
So for this episode, we're going to talk about something that neither of us have heard of before, but Mike came across by chance. We've been having some good luck lately with.
Yeah, this particular creature I found through like one of those articles that you click on Twitter, and then on the side of the article there's like all these other articles that are like somewhat related. I was actually the article I was reading was on a particular type of Bigfoot creature that lives in Ohio called the Grassman, which we'll probably do an episode on the Grassman later on down the line. But this one came up while I was reading that, and this is called the Crosswick Snake Monster.
Ooh, I see. I like that. Not Snake Man. We're not picturing a buff dude that has leathery skin and charming yellow eyes. This is a monster.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so this is one of those. We could probably incorporate this into a regular show if we were doing a show on like weird reptoid monster things, because God knows there's a lot. So maybe you guys are on the who are our patrons, let's not tell the other guys, but you guys are way cooler than those guys.
100%.
Yeah. But so you're getting this story. You're getting an episode based solely on this, but maybe in the future we'll let the Klingons know about the about this guy when we're talking about reptoid monsters.
Oh.
Yeah, like I said, you guys are way cooler. We love the shit out of you guys.
Yeah.
The other guys, they're all right. They're all right. I don't want to talk shit about them, but let's be real. You guys are way cooler, and you know it. You are.
Can't deny it.
No, you can't. But this is one of those one and done sort of situations where it was sighted one single time and then never seen again. But the interesting thing here is that it was originally sighted by a couple of kids, and then a large group of men. Well, all told, there were dozens of people that saw this thing in the end. But it was a sighting that lasted a few hours. So this event took place in May of 1882. So this is a pretty old case, obviously. It took place in a area known as Waynesville, Ohio, but apparently Crosswick. I don't even know if Crosswick still exists, but it's this small village in Ohio. It's actually 60 miles from Loveland, Ohio, which you might recall because of the Loveland Frogmen. So it's closer to Kentucky. But this particular event, this occurred on May 29th, 1882. And what had happened was there were two boys, Ed and Joe Lynch, and they were fishing at a small creek on the south side of their village. And after they had been there for a while sitting on the bank and fishing, they started hearing this noise coming from the reeds. And it was moving the grass and the brush behind them. So they started looking around, and all of a sudden they see this reptilian monster, which rushes out of the grass at them. And they said that when the boys reported it, they said that they had screamed but became paralyzed with fear because they didn't know what this was. It looked kind of like a snake, but it rushed out, and as it got close to the older boy, who I believe was Ed, who was 13 years old, out of its body came these arms or front legs that came out of the body and then grabbed the kid and pulled him close. And then as soon as he grabbed Ed, two other legs that had been hiding in its body popped out of the back half, and the legs were 4 feet long that ended with feet that were a foot long. Each foot was a foot long. And so it grabbed this boy and it took off running, and it ran 100 yards, give or take, down the creek to where there was this large sycamore tree that had been dying. So it was, most of it had been hollowed out at this point. So it rushes into the hollow and it starts trying to pull Ed into the hollow. There just happened to be 3 adults in the area who had heard this. They were actually quarrying stone further down the creek. And one of them was Reverend Jacob Horn. Then there was a man named George Peterson and Alan Jordan. And they heard the screams and rushed to see what the problem was, where they actually witnessed this creature pulling the kid and trying to pull him down into the crevice of this hollowed out tree. And the boy by this point they said he was half dead. Like he was lifeless. He was barely moving, barely breathing. But at this point, the creature had the boy in its mouth, and it was holding him in its mouth with its fangs. So they came and they started yelling at it and striking at it, and it let Ed go. So they pulled him out, and then this thing went and scurried further up the tree. So they couldn't access it, but they it went into a crevice in this hollowed out tree. So they stayed. Well, 2 of the men stayed and sent somebody with the boy back into town, where the boy was treated by a Dr. Lukens, and the other men that went to round up a bunch of other guys to come and deal with this creature, whatever it was. So later that afternoon, the article that reports on this says that there were 60 men that were armed with clubs, axes, and had dogs, hunting dogs. They surrounded the sycamore tree and tried to get this thing to come out. When it didn't come out, they started to cut the tree down. And once they started chopping into the tree with the axes, this creature came out of a hole at the top of the tree and jumped down out of the tree, scaring some of the guys who were sitting there chopping the tree down. So like they didn't even try to stop it. It just jumped over them and took off running. But once it hit the ground, when it first jumped out as like this snake creature. But once it hit the ground, it popped its legs out again. And then all the witnesses present said that this thing, once it pulled its legs out and hit the ground, it stood up on its back legs. And from its back legs to the top of its head, they said it stood about 12 to 14 feet. And then with the velocity of a racehorse, ran across the creek and up a small hill on its hind legs, climbing over a fence, breaking down the fence, and then continuing to run on.
Holy shit.
So these people started chasing after the thing. They chased it until it ran into a hole in this hill under a rock ledge. And they tried to get it out. A bunch of them waited around, and it never came back out. They never found it. But all the witnesses said, from nose to the tip of this thing's tail, it was between 30 to 40 feet long.
Holy shit.
It stood, when it was standing on its hind legs, it stood 12 to 14 feet. but with its tail, they said it was 30 to 40 feet long, and it was at least 16 inches in diameter. And again, the legs were 4 feet long. The whole body was covered in scales. It was the body itself was black and white in color with large yellow spots. And they said the head was at least 16 inches wide with a black forked tongue, and the inside of the mouth was a deep red.
That's pretty descriptive there.
Yeah. Yeah. By the morning, Ed had recovered. He was bruised and scratched and frightened, but he had survived. Throughout the night, he had actually gone into convulsions, but by 3 o'clock in the morning, he finally fell asleep, and when he woke up, he seemed to be okay, and the doctor reported that from that point, he would recover within a few days. But there were 60 people in total that reported being a part of this chase, and they named the three original adults that witnessed the creature taking the kids, one being the Reverend, and all of them vouched for these events.
That's insane. I mean, we hear about these one-offs. We always talk about how they're our favorites. But there's so much going on in this one encounter. So many witnesses, an actual attack, and then like a kidnapping, and then actually got away, and then was seen again when they came back to hunt it down.
Yeah, and then once it escaped into the hills and went into the hole under the rocks, it was never seen again. But one thing to kind of, so this was the actual leading event, or this was the event that made this thing famous, but for decades before this, in the area surrounded, like in the village of Crosswicks, there had been these weird footprints that were spotted in the dust on the roads and in the dirt and along the creek bed. They were finding these weird footprints that no one could explain what they were, and occasionally people would send hunting dogs to try to track these down, and once the dogs would pick up a scent, they would go and take off running, but the dogs would never come back. But because they never had they didn't have anything to go on, they were just like, well, that's probably some sort of predator that got my dogs. But then after the sighting took place, they were like, oh shit, maybe these footprints that we were seeing in the missing dogs are related to this snake monster.
Right. And I like how they went back to the hills to try to capture this thing. For the time that this story takes place, I think people sometimes forget what a real concern, danger of wildlife is in a place like that. There's no cars. These people are walking most of the places they go, if not in a horse-drawn carriage.
Horses.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's either going to attract some type of predator, or you're just exposed to the wildlife more. So, I mean, even their response to the situation, it sounds pretty, I mean, I don't know if genuine is the right word, but it sounds understandable.
Yeah. And it's this is a small community. This isn't like it's a big city, and this is a small community in the 1800s, which at that point in time, they would have, the community is reliant upon each other to be a functioning community, and just seeing how quick they were able to get a posse together to hunt this thing down. This thing was, if it's going to take one kid, then no kids are safe. So you got to hunt this thing down.
Yeah, that's the thing that I love in my mind when I see this playing out, is I can totally imagine the impromptu town meeting where they all look at each other and say, we have to get rid of this thing. If this just happened, we have to track this thing down and kill it. And then they tried. Please tell me there's I know it's for the time, there wasn't as many illustrations in newspapers or anything like that, but is there any type of drawing or artist depiction of this thing?
There is, but I don't know if it's contemporary with the article.
Right.
So I don't know if at the time there were any illustrations done, but I have seen some illustrations of this thing. But what it's like, it's just a weird description, because if we're looking at it from the standpoint of known animals that exist, for one, there's no lizards that are able to pop their legs in and out of their body. That's not a thing that happens. You could say that maybe the legs just weren't seen at first when it was rushing through, and it just looked like a snake because it's a big writhing body, and you're just like, oh my god, it's a fucking snake. That's definitely a possibility, but then we look at the size. There are no lizards that stand on their hind legs and run that are 12 to 14 feet. One of the biggest lizards in the world is a Komodo dragon, and I think the largest specimen from a Komodo dragon has only been 10 feet, and that's including the tail. So the claims that this thing was 30 to 40 feet from nose to tail and stood on its hind legs at 12 to 14 feet, that does not match the description of any known reptile at all.
Like ever, not even dinosaurs.
Right.
Very much not a Mokele Mbembe situation.
No,
like a lingering creature.
I mean, we don't know of any reptiles that are able to retract their legs. Like, that's the closest thing is a turtle, and they don't like really retract their legs. They just kind of pull them in a little bit. They're not really like, it's not like in cartoons where they're actually inside their body, you know? So I don't know what the hell this thing could be. I know trying to explain it now, a lot of people are pointing to perhaps an escaped monitor lizard. But they were able to describe the color black and white with yellow spots.
Wow. And it had legs that it ran on and forelimbs that came out of its back, you said?
No, so when the boys first saw it, it looked like a snake. And then when it finally approached the boys, two legs shot out of the front of its body that were 4 feet long and grabbed the kid.
Ugh.
And then legs shot out of the back half of the body and it ran.
Okay. God, what the hell could that thing be? Maybe it's some type of... It seems like it's adapted for its environment, too.
Or it's some sort of nonsense goblin universe creature.
Yeah, man. That's a gnarly one. That's like I said, that's different from Mokele and Mbembe. It goes into the realm of, like we stated at the beginning, monster. We're heading into like chupacabras territory.
Right, because it's not, I mean, just the size alone. And again, we've discussed stories from the 1800s many times, and we know that there was a lot of bullshitting going on. Like the story of the pterodactyl being killed in the desert and all that stuff. There's a lot of bullshit that goes on. A lot of the early airship sightings were either completely made up or exaggerated. We know that there were pranksters that would use newspaper articles to kind of one-up each other. So is it possible that this was one of those type events? Sure. But the fact that they're able to name, they named both boys, the father of the boys, and the three adults that were the first to appear on the scene, one being a reverend. I don't know. I don't know what else it could be. Like, either it's something that was completely fabricated as one of these pranks, or it was an honestly weird thing. I guess the other alternative could be that it was, maybe what they saw was a monitor lizard, and they reported it as, monitor lizards can get like 6 feet long. So maybe they saw like a 6 foot long monitor lizard. They described it as being 12 feet long, and then the author of the article further embellished it to say it was 30 to 40 feet long.
Yeah.
And it stood at 12 to 14 feet. But even that being said, monitor lizards don't walk on their hind legs. It just it doesn't make sense. And also monitor lizards, their legs aren't that long.
No.
So it's a weird case, man. I don't have any explanations for it.
No way,
other than it was some sort of fucking hell beast that wanted to eat the kid.
Right. It's a new one of these things we can throw into the list of straight up monsters like a bunyip and fucking melon heads and shit. Jeez.
Yeah. Maybe this is a Lumberwoods sort of situation. Only it's not the Lumberwoods. It's just a specific area of Ohio. But this thing, the craziest thing to me is this thing has not been seen since.
Yeah.
Like, you'd think even with all these things, people still will be like, "Oh my God, I saw the snake monster."
Now, does this story come from it comes from an article, right?
Yeah.
It kind of just reads out like those old 18th century, 19th century articles too. It just states the facts, what happened, gave names, and that's it. I wonder, oh man, I wish things were more easy to access. I wonder if like neighboring towns had reports as well, you know? Maybe it headed some other direction.
Yeah, I don't know. The original article, you can still pull the archive of the article, but it's from a newspaper called the Western Star, for anyone that wants to look it up.
Damn. Fucking snake monster indeed.
Yeah. So, if you're
in Ohio,
if you happen to be a little kid in Waynesville, Ohio, maybe think twice before you go fishing near any creeks. Yeah. But I'm sure if you're a little kid in Waynesville, Ohio, you've heard the story. It's probably one of those awesome urban legends you hear as a kid, and then you go out in the woods and you go hunting for the Crosswick snake monster in the woods. And I remember doing that shit as a kid, looking for Bigfoot.
Well, see, that's what's cool about it. There's no mention. It's not a story about kids being warned about, don't go too far out or the snake monster will get you. Or the article saying the legendary snake monster tales, from the natives of the land shared with settlers. Nothing like that. It's just a report of this fucked up fucking thing that happened. It's fucking so weird.
Yeah, it is. But nobody died. Nobody got eaten by the monster. So that's good.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of The Quick and the Weird, and thank you so much for supporting us here on Patreon and sticking with us.
Yeah, you guys are the best. We appreciate the shit out of you. Like I said, you're way cooler than those other guys. Don't tell them I said that, but you can tell them I said that.